right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the dissertation defense of Jennifer Stephens. Jennifer has had a long career in the Army. She was even a boat commander, and she is probably one of the first students I've ever encountered in the DBA program who knew from day one what they wanted to do. She wanted to study veterans who are entrepreneurs or veteranpreneurs. So, Jennifer, I'll let you start off.
Thank you. That got the
You got one?
speaker. I'm so excited to be at this day, as I'm sure we all are. And again, my name is Jennifer Stephens, and this is the title of my dissertation. And as we have stated, I've known before I started the program, from 4 years ago, that this was my title. This was my goal. My goal was to help veterans and guide them into their future career. And truthfully, my title has never changed, although the substance a little bit. I would like to acknowledge a few folks. Obviously, Dr. Simha, thank you so much. Dr. Shu, I cannot express, I can't express the gratitude that I have for you. Hours you met with me to help me with statistics. And so I really appreciate this. And everybody played a critical role. Dr. Zakaria, with her reader comments, phenomenal, made me a better person, made me have a better paper. We have our program instructors. Surprisingly, I was never gonna do a quantitative paper. It was gonna be qualitative. But my statistics instructors, Dr. Dahl, Dr. Yu, they all convinced me that this might be the way to go. Turns out it was. And of course, Dr. Prabhatia and my cohort classmates, we are really close and we really support each other. And the great news is we all have the same goal. We want everybody to succeed. So we all come to support each other to succeed. And my family is so important to me. They're not here today because one is a firefighter and he's on duty. And the other one is working at a weapons range right now, and he's on duty. And one great note I'd like to put down is, while I was in this program, my older son finished his bachelor's degree here. Further, he finished his master's degree in environmental science at UW Green Bay. So he has finished 2 degrees while I'm working on my one. But that's all right, I'm not bitter. Okay, today's agenda, I'm gonna talk a little bit about my background and my personal motivation, which you heard a little bit about, but I'm really motivated about it. And then there's the agenda for the study, what we're actually gonna be talking about, so that you kind of know the gist of what we'll be covering. Here's the first one. This is my background. I'd like to point something out. These are my boats. This is what I commanded in the Pacific. 300-foot vessels all the way across the Pacific from Korea, Pyeongtaek, to Hawaii, and through the Panama Canal. So these boats have been places. And those helicopters, we would do helicopter drops all the time. So I got to work with all kinds of modes of transportation, and so I'm pretty happy about that. But as a 20-year Army vet, the one thing I want to talk about is servant leadership. I'm a servant leader. My job is not to be great. My job is to serve the people that want to be great. All of my soldiers who needed something, my goal was to get them the resources they needed to do their job. And that's what made them great. And by extension, they served me very well. And in fact, I went from enlisted person to officer simply because of this one fact. I, as a young enlisted person, did not get the leadership I wanted. So I became an officer so I can look out for the young soldiers below me. And it worked out. Some of the key jobs I had, I was an adjutant in the 45th CASG, it's a Corps Support Group. Try and hold back on the acronyms, in the 25th Infantry, and I had about 600 soldiers I was in charge for all their administrative work. I was a boat commander, as we see here, and this was the best job in the world. In fact, it's so funny, this was the only job I did not want in the military, but they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, which is what good leaders do. And they told me that after the fact. They said, we knew you'd be good. I said, well, I didn't. They go, that's not the problem. We saw you be good. And so turned out to be the best job I've ever had in my life. I was the National Transportation Officer for the United States Army. President Clinton, in fact, gave me the award for Army Air Officer of the Year for my transportation exercises. I ran cross-country, across 22 different states, all the state leaderships, all the transportation, rail, tugboat, car, vehicle, everything. I was a battalion XO for a recruiting battalion in Kansas City. I was in charge of recruiting in 4 different states, and that was a big job. And finally, I was an all-MEC advanced course leader. I taught at the Army Logistics Management College at Fort Lee, Virginia. Even wrote a bunch of magazine articles about forward placement of logistics on the battlefield. So that's nice. They allowed me some publishing, but not in this area, but in logistics. And I continue to serve in leadership afterwards, because when I left service, as most veterans do, we get antsy, and we want to be back in service. I couldn't do that because I had too many things that I couldn't do physically. So I started working at Trident University, where 80% of the student population is military. So I got to see some great and wonderful people. Here's the research background. Veterans basically have a very strong desire to start a small business after service. And this is across the board. This is something I saw for 20 years. Everybody talks about the next career. They always do, and they always prepare for it, which is great. Currently, service members are not aware of some of the small steps that it takes to start a small business. And that's unfortunate, but it can be fixed. So that's one of my goals here today, is to help with that. There are strategies available at Small Business Administration, not only for businesses, but also for veterans, and you'll see here. Veterans have a high rate of starting their own business, surprisingly. If you ask a veteran, did you start your own business? Odds are they're gonna have a yes in there somewhere for some reason. Having explanatory research will be the best way to capture the motivation. Why veterans open their small business? How do they go about transitioning from the military service to civilian business success? And where do they start? And what are the methods to succeed? And no 2 stories are the same. You have every single veteran has a different motivation, different idea of what they want to do and how they want to do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But even when it doesn't work, that's still good because you learn from it. You learn what not to do, which I think is the most valuable lesson. We're going to talk about contributions and importance of the study here. I have to read, sorry. There is some existing literature out there, which is wonderful, but there's not enough. What I found is I found some, but it was really hard to get some existing literature on veteran entrepreneurs. So I want to be able to add to that. I want to help veterans research and realize, basically to be a cheerleader. I want to be a cheerleader to them, saying, you can do this, here's how. And so there needs to be more research. The study expands the body of work and ultimately will help veterans see in themselves their ability to become entrepreneurs. I will tell you, I cannot tell you how many stories I have about sending soldiers to the next advanced course or sergeant's board. And they didn't see in themselves the leader they were going to be, much like my leader saw in me when I took the boat command. I saw the leaders in them. I sent them to the course, and they turned out to be wonderful. So that's the basic essence of becoming an entrepreneur, seeing the success that you can have. There are, however, barriers to consider, such as lack of resources, lack of networks. When you leave service, and there's not much there. You don't have the same gel, the same networking systems that you had while in service, and you have to start over from scratch for a second career. And that can be very tough. And this study will focus on individuals across various branches of the military rather than specific classifications, such as combat deployment, non-combat deployment, whether you're infantry, armor, transportation, it doesn't matter. It's the totality of the veteran that I looked at. And developing the EMEIENO, that's the entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial intention, and entrepreneurial orientation from an early stage to overcome these barriers. So that is the contribution I hope to make. It's a 1 essay model, and this was intentional. I always knew it would be a 1 essay model. It's a 3-pronged approach. And I always thought it would be a 3-pronged approach, but I didn't know how much till the very end. I thought it was, but then it proved it was. which is the goal of a dissertation. It's a three-pronged approach of entrepreneurial intention, which is the desire to plan, entrepreneurial mindset, which has the attitude and thought process of an individual approach, and entrepreneurial orientation, the strategic behaviors and processes that define an individual's approach to entrepreneurship. These three work in tandem. They do not work separately. And you will see that I have a higher order construct combining these three. And so it worked out to be a great one essay. It would either be one essay or three. I chose one. And here are my research questions. Let's talk about them. The first one focuses on entrepreneurial alertness and entrepreneurial attributes. Okay? And here we go. How does entrepreneurial alertness mediate self-efficacy and EO-EM-EI? And if I say EO, it's entrepreneurial orientation, EM is entrepreneurial mindset, and EI is entrepreneurial intention. And I'll probably mix and match them throughout. But basically, that is the core question. The second question is self-efficacy and entrepreneurial attributes. And I think in a lot of dissertations that we have here in the business school, self-efficacy is going to be a really big topic because we all have it, we all want it, we all need it. So how does self-efficacy and EO, EM, and EI interact in order to determine entrepreneurial performance in a vetrepreneur? And let's talk about the different constructs. I have 7 constructs. Okay, so they're all wonderful constructs. I wish there were more, but that's for future research. Self-efficacy. This is a person's belief in their own abilities to accomplish tasks and to succeed in situations. Entrepreneurial alertness. A person's ability, without active searching, that's the key element, to notice opportunities that others may overlook in business. This is often rooted in a person's own knowledge and experience. Okay? And then entrepreneurial intention, a person's conviction that they will intend to open a business. You have to want to do it. Someone can't force you to open a business. You have to have the intrinsic value to do this on your own. And having a mindset for action and orientation and future planning. Entrepreneurial orientation, a person's own posture in business towards new ventures based on behaviors and decision-making styles. Invokes innovativeness, proactiveness, and overall risk-taking tendencies. You're going to see a common theme in this, and that's risk-taking. We were born and bred from day one in the military to be risk-takers. Every single time that we do something, we do a risk assessment. It's not new. And there's always risk, but is it a gamble? You have to do a risk assessment and mitigate the risks that could downplay a decision-making process. Next slide. Entrepreneurial mindset, a person's thinking process that includes attitudes, intellectual habits, and having a sense of identity, and to pursue the opportunity without regard to resourcing. This doesn't mean just jumping into the deep end of the pool, but it's having a thoughtful process. This is the higher order construct made up of EO, EI, EM, and these are the entrepreneurial behaviors. And they are interrelated and reflect jointly on the veteran's overall entrepreneurial disposition. Entrepreneurial performance, and this is the end goal. A person's ability to identify and exploit opportunities to create values in business. This is through achievement of those goals, creating value, and high levels of efficiency and solid strategies. In the military, this is a great benefit to us because we are tasked to make high-pressure decisions in a very short amount of time. And there's very limited space for not doing it well. You have to do it well and fast. So you are trained over this over a couple of decades. Let's talk about the operationalization of the constructs. Self-efficacy, it's having the belief in their ability to succeed through goal setting and measuring their performance in challenging tasks. This is done daily, okay, in the military. You're given a task, you have to measure it, you have to accomplish it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you don't accomplish it, don't worry, we'll sit you down and help you figure out how to accomplish it. But the bottom line is that self-efficacy is built because it gives confidence to all these veterans to complete the mission, to complete the job, to open the business, to make a success of it. Entrepreneurial alertness is the veteran evaluates the potential of an opportunity and uses their judgment of the venture's viability. And this can be very environmentally dependent, where you are in the country, what business you want to open. So having that alertness to understand your current state of affairs is key. Next is entrepreneurial intention. And this involves translation of leadership skills to entrepreneurial intention and measuring intent to act by creating pathways and tangible steps like business plans. I will tell you, I never took no for an answer. Not at once. Not at once did I take no for an answer. I said, okay, if you say no, how can I make it happen? Let's see what I can do to create the opportunity and to create the success. And this was done, I planned wars based on this method. I had a question one time. My battalion commander goes, hey, Major Stevens, can you transport this gas for President Clinton? I go, sure, but here's what I need. And they gave me everything. As long as I expressed my need to accomplish the mission, it was great. But I had to have that in me. Entrepreneurial orientation involves the veteran's ability to utilize their skills and apply them. I love to communicate. I love to over-communicate. I'll ensure I communicate the intent to you over and over and over until it's done. And having focus that will lead to venture to success. I've never had an unsuccessful mission in the military. Not once. Even the one time I almost did, the battalion commander ended up emailing the entire battalion saying, Captain Stevens did the one thing the Marines couldn't do. They captured the talk. And I go, yes, I did. So I will tell you that, and you can do it with a smile. You don't have to be mean about it. You can actually just do it wonderful, as long as you understand that you have to have the focus to complete it. So I always had that, and I know all my vets that I've dealt with have had that. And entrepreneurial mindset. And this is where the veteran will implement the processes through problem-solving skills. Constant problem solving is a norm. There's nothing that really has to be learned after they leave service, because they've practiced this while they're in service. These are all the entrepreneurial attributes of EO, EI, AM, and they're multidimensional latent constructs that represent the combined strength. So it's a combined strength of the three constructs. And then entrepreneurial performance, again, this is the end goal. This is the process of the veteran measuring the success of their venture. It's great to open a business, but what if it's not successful? Now what? You have to make it a successful venture, or you have to retool it, restart it, but the end goal is to get optimal performance. Okay, so let me just make sure this is the problem. Yeah, I'm gonna go do both of them. Okay, problem. When examining the key dimensions of EM, EI, and EO, the goal is to provide understanding of how a veteran can leverage their skills and specific experiences while in service. Sometimes the veteran cannot see the forest through the trees. And the intent of this research is to mow a path in that forest so they can see the other side of it. And sometimes just that little help will help the veteran complete the goal, which is nice. The contribution: by addressing the gap in tactics, veterans can develop the traits necessary to thrive in their chosen business. Using theory of planned behavior, which we'll cover that a little bit, is the way to describe what it is and how it can be used. This study could benefit veteran business owners by showing how existing behaviors that they have can transition into into a business lifestyle. Veterans could apply these three attributes to create a stable environment and have sustained overall success in their business. Because you want sustainment in a business. It's nice to have a good year, but I want a good decade. So how do I make that happen? And society changes and the environment changes quite a bit. So we have to keep developing this as we go along. So that's the gap. The gap, we have veterans, we have entrepreneurs, but it's stuff in the middle. That's where we need more. That's why I'm here. We need more. We have some, and it's great. It's great stuff, but we need more specifically to the veteran. Basically applying intention to behavior. Okay, for the literature review, there was a lot of literature on entrepreneurial stuff, and I applied it to veterans. And I'll just cover a couple authors on each one, not all the ones that I have, because I don't think you want 10 pages of references. But I have them if you need them. But Chen, Gully, and Eden, self-efficacy, for self-efficacy, they're the first steps in having a high performance as a veteran entrepreneur. If you don't have self-efficacy, if you don't have confidence, you don't have a good cornerstone to build a business. So self-efficacy gives, and Chen also discusses how purpose and venture is almost as important as the venture itself. As I said here, and it's been said before in other presentations, we knew what we wanted to do. My concept has never changed. I've changed how I've presented the concept, but the concept was always there. So that is basically what self-efficacy is. I knew what I want, how am I gonna get there? How will I get from point A to Z? And they shape the conditions that they live into for their life after service. And this program, I shaped it. We had to write over 3 years, 3 papers. So I did one EI, EO, and EM, and it was perfect. It was a perfect way to accomplish the final paper. For entrepreneurial alertness, again, we have Chen Gali and hypotheses. I almost got it. Entrepreneurial alertness are the first steps of having high performance as a veteran entrepreneur. Once you have the self-efficacy, and this is the first actionable step, having the alertness to spot things around you. EI drives innovation and business success that a veteran engages in. There's always a driver to an action, so understanding what those drivers are. Entrepreneurial intention. Aldrich says that EI has a series of behavioral actions, and this can be presented in how veterans act. Kong, Zhao, and Tai, formation of a plan to take action and to put it into practice. You just don't jump into the deep end of the water. You gotta have a plan. Everybody needs a plan. We need 5. We always did a 5-point contingency plan. We always knew what was gonna happen even if things went bad. So it's okay if things go bad, but what are you gonna do when things go bad? So having that plan is part of entrepreneurial intention. And the contribution to identity, suggesting that entrepreneurial intention is shaped by the narrative veteran entrepreneurs construct about themselves, their ventures, and their place in the world. You can have 2 veterans who had the same job, same numbers of years of service, but they have 2 totally different personalities. And that is what can contribute to identity. Maybe one doesn't have the self-efficacy enough to run a business, but the other one has so much he can share it, which is wonderful. Entrepreneurial mindset. This is probably the only author I found that consistently showed up in veteran literature. And it's a general concept that entrepreneurial mindset and its characteristics, as well as the importance of certain traits for veterans' entrepreneurial success. McGrath and Macmillan explores how individuals and organizations can cultivate veteran entrepreneurial mindset to thrive in a dynamic and unpredictable environment. Quite frankly, I loved the unpredictable environment. They often called me the spoon because I like to stir it up. But I love the unpredictable because you learn so much more. You learn so much more when things go wrong, quite frankly, and you learn what not to do, which is sometimes more important than what to do. And the next author I want to talk about for a second. We were very lucky in this program. In year 1, Professor Lumpkin, he came and talked to us. Little did I know how important he would be to me. When he gave his briefing and he talked about all the entrepreneurial stuff, it was amazing. And I looked at him and I go, you're saying everything I'm thinking. And I didn't know how important he would be to me because he's done so much research. So I was very drawn to the fact that we were given the opportunity to get a briefing from someone who was so influential. And basically, focusing on the role of shaping entrepreneurial behavior, particularly through dispositional and opportunity beliefs. Seizing an opportunity when you see it, so important. And finally, entrepreneurial mindset. I have a few friendly and relatable names here. Veterans have the experience of high stakes decisions under pressure. This enhances opportunity recognition. Let's just say, my definition of a problem and your definition of a problem are 2 wildly different things. I don't have problems in the second career. I have situations to be resolved. A war was planned on an entirely wrong day when I was in service. That was a problem. And we had to fix that problem very quickly. So you learn to solve problems in the military very quickly, very effectively. But here, you at least have a little time to digest and work through it. Myers talks about focusing on EM that can be understood through the lens of a veteran entrepreneurship. The lens of an entrepreneur and the lens of a veteran entrepreneur are two wildly different things. I don't know what experience that entrepreneur has. I know what experience that veteran has. And I know what the potential is there. And again, we have Professor Lumpkin here again. Entrepreneurial mindset is a crucial construct in the fields of management and entrepreneurial research. Little do we know. He might read one of my articles one day. We'll see. Okay, we're gonna talk about theory of planned behavior. This is Eisen. He is the seminal author for theory of planned behavior. And you'll see he's referenced in every paper that I read on entrepreneurship and behavior-driven articles. But theory of planned behavior explains how attitudes, social norms, and perceived control shape intentions. Perceived control. Remember, perception is reality. So however I perceive the situation is how I'm going to treat it. And perception can be different between two people. Strong predictor of entrepreneurial intention and behavior, and veterans show unique psychological, social, and structural characteristics under theory of planned behavior. I struggle to remember one veteran that couldn't make a decision. So we're not very undecisive. Theory of planned behavior helps explain attention formation in this particular population. Okay, veteran identity, transition stress, and resource access combined with transitional theory of planned behavior. And veteran identity is not as much as in transition stress. I will tell you the first year after service, toughest year. You're lost. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, State of Play on HBO, but it's about folks in high stakes jobs, and they particularly talked about Brett Favre when he retired from football. You hit this wall. You don't know what's next. And I got out 30 days, I found out that I had an incurable disease, and so I had to get out of service because I couldn't live with it in service. And so I hit a wall going, what next? So my full-time job was to find a full-time job, and it worked out for me. Creates more complete explanation of veteran entrepreneurial behavior. So theory of planned behavior is going to be embedded in everything that I research, I think, in my lifetime. The theoretical framework, the conceptual model encompasses individual traits and characteristics, including innovativeness, proactiveness, and risk-taking. I love the risk-taking. I have no problem doing that. I go, basically my famous saying is, what could go wrong? So, well, some things go wrong, but then you fix it. Environmental and organizational factors must be considered, ultimately leading to entrepreneurial outcomes and performance. And by this, environmental and organizational factors. We have had a lot of environmental change in our recent past, especially with COVID. People had to change the way they did things. This entire university went to virtual classes and whatnot. And actually, I really believe when things go wrong, it solves bigger problems. Now, no university has to shut down. You just know how to go to virtual. So the great news is you learn how to adapt and overcome. And that's part of the theory. Analysis of environmental factors will lead to better performance. For example, understanding the rapid change of business genre that can help an entrepreneur be more nimble in changing the trajectory of a business. No two businesses are the same. Some have a faster moving pace. Others, okay, it's a little slower, but you have to determine each business on their own merits. Nothing is universal. Okay, moving on to the next part, just continuing. The quantitative research method was used in this study. I wasn't intending to start it with quantitative, but here we are. I was intending to do qualitative and interview veterans. But after talking to my awesome statistics teachers, they really convinced me this might be a way to go. Turns out it was. Even though it intimidated me, I said, what's the worst that could happen? And it turned out really, really well. But this method allows for statistical analysis of data collected from a sample. The participants are veterans who have started a business and received small business grants. So I only took a very small kind of person in the study, okay? And it came from different databases. The first was the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs. They have a listing, which is available to everybody, of Wisconsin veterans who have gotten a grant. In fact, the state of Wisconsin called me at home one day, and they said, yeah, sure, you can use our database. It's public. I said, thank you. I appreciate that. And they go, we hope you use it, and we hope others use it. Because by using this database, we're going to expand the body of knowledge, which is wonderful. And the secondary place I got data from was the same kind of data, but on a national level. So I started in the Midwest and kind of branched out. I didn't hit anything like California, Texas, or New York. I tried to stay in the Midwest to keep the same kind of veteran businesses. But basically, by the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021, Small Business Administration and the VA are mandated to track every veteran business that has received a grant. That was helpful to me for the data. Although some of the participants were shocked how I got their name. I said, I got ways. Let's talk about common method bias. Surveys are subject to prestige bias, recency bias, or current mood and emotional state. If veterans answer the survey in the most challenging time of their business versus the most profitable, you're going to get different answers. So if they're in the struggling, they're going to give far negative answers, where if they're showing profit, their answers are going to be different. So that's quite the bias. And to avoid this bias and survey fatigue, I wanted to ensure that the questions were clear, simple, and engaging. I don't want it to be over-complex. This is a Likert scale question, as well as open-ended questions at the end for veterans to answer, if they so desired, so they can express themselves. I also wanted to make sure that they were anonymous, because sometimes you don't want to advertise who you are and what you do. You're willing to answer the questions, but as long as you're kept anonymous. So that was particularly important to me. Let's talk about the hypothesis. I have 8. And this is an evolution of time. The first one, self-efficacy positively influences entrepreneurial alertness. And I'll show you this on a model in a second. And then the second one is self-efficacy positively influences entrepreneurial performance on the far end. And entrepreneurial alertness positively influences entrepreneurial performance. I know it all kinds of same, but really alertness and performance are wildly different. The fourth one is entrepreneurial alertness positively influences the all combined entrepreneurial behaviors. And so all is that combined, the 3. Positively influences entrepreneurial performance. All positively influences entrepreneurial orientation, mindset, and intention. You'll see that here in my model in just a second. This is the design, defining the scope, identifying the main concepts to measure, and identifying indicators based on the concepts, and identifying the questionnaire. This is all a developmental process that everyone's going to go through. Here's my model. So this is my child that I have developed over 3 years. What it looked like 3 years ago is not what it looked like 2 months ago. So I will say that it is developed over time, and it's gotten better and better and better. And we have reflective concepts here. And but the bottom line is that everything leads to entrepreneurial performance. That is the ultimate goal. So this model was pretty important to me. Let's look at the results of the study, just so we can see what happened to our research questions. For the first one, the results show that entrepreneurial alertness mediates the relationship between self-efficacy. EA also has a positive effect on EO, EI, EM, ultimately leading to positive EP, entrepreneurial performance, and contributes to the literature by reaffirming the positive relationship. For the second question, the results show that self-efficacy interacts with entrepreneurial orientation and intention and mindset in the overall entrepreneurial performance. Remember, all 3 are important to performance. And what happened was I was able to show that. The study showed that entrepreneurial mindset has a positive effect on entrepreneurial performance, and intention does influence the overall EP through the combined higher order construct of the all construct. EO does not have the same relationship or effect on EP, however. This was the one place that didn't quite materialize what I thought it would. So it doesn't have as strong an effect as I would like, and I'll show you that here shortly. This indicates that risk-taking is an entrepreneurial endeavor, might not always translate to success. At first you don't succeed, try again. It's not meant that everything will succeed on the first try, but having that intentional fortitude to get up and do it again, which is wonderful. Okay, I think I need my notes on this one. This is one of those important slides. Basically here, all the constructs demonstrate acceptable reliability. And with the Cronbach's alpha above being 0.7, which is always the goal. Composite reliability values indicate strong internal consistency across model constructs. And most average values exceeded the 0.5 threshold, which is also what we'd like to see, and this supports convergent validity. Entrepreneurial intention showed the strongest measurement reliability and validity among the constructs. And so I have a couple different slides based on this, but all the yellow bits there are the questions I asked that were on the survey, that survived the survey. So that, I had a lot more questions, but we had to take some out simply because of the numbers. Let's talk about the reliability scores. Okay, and here again, the Cronbach alpha was above 0.7 in all of them, which is just wonderful. I love to see that. So it all had good validity and gave credit to the material. Most average values again exceeded the 0.5 threshold, and this supported the convergent validity. And again, EI showed the strongest measure. Up there, as you will see, at 0.88. Okay, next slide. So this model here just basically shows the explanatory values here, and indicating that the predictors explain a large portion of the variance and the construct compared to the others. All has a moderate predictive strength, right up there, as you will see, while EP and EO demonstrate acceptable levels of explained variance within the structural model. Most structural relationships are statistically significant, is indicated by the very low p-values, except for my friend right here. That was my friend that kind of realized that it didn't have all the potential that it could have. The path from all to EP appears weak and statistically non-significant, implying that all might not meaningfully influence EP in this model, not necessarily at all, just in this particular model based on the questions that I had. Let's talk about these descriptive statistics. Here, the strongest relationship in the model is all to EI. And indicating a very strong and highly significant positive effect. Significant positive effects are also observed for all to EM, all to EO, and self-efficacy to EP. This demonstrates that these predictors substantially influence their respective constructs. Relationship of all to EP is not statistically significant. So I saw it over and over, regardless of what numbers I ran. I saw that it was not statistically significant. And this suggests that all does not have a meaningful direct impact on EP in this proposed model. Again, I say in this model. Could be very different in a different model. The low standard deviations across all paths indicate stable bootstrap estimates, while the close similarity between the original sample and the mean value confirms consistency and reliability in the model estimates. So I love statistics so much. Let's talk about the statistic significant pass. So here are the numbers for that we just covered. But for self-efficacy to entrepreneurial alertness, this would indicate a highly significant, strong, and positive effect on EA. Theory of planned behavior is supported here because self-efficacy will enhance EA. For the next one, self-efficacy to EP. This would indicate a highly significant, strong, and positive effect. TBB is supported. And then EA to EP, this suggests that EA has a significant positive effect. TBB supported, which is great. They want to all be supported, as we see here. But EA to all, as a higher order construct, has a positive effect that EA would have on all. And TBB is supported here because EA will indeed enhance the overall attitude of entrepreneurship. All to EP, my arch nemesis, that would not indicate a highly significant, strong, and positive effect on the overall attitude towards entrepreneurship. TBP is not supported here. So because the attitude of entrepreneurship and all did not enhance EP overall. All to EO, this would indicate significant, strong, and positive effect, and thus TBP is supported because the attitude towards entrepreneurship does enhance EO. And this is the last slide. We're all in EM. TBB is supported here because the attitude towards entrepreneurship does enhance the EM. And finally, all to EI. TBB is supported because attitude towards entrepreneurship does indeed enhance all. So, after all that, here are my 8 hypotheses. 7 are supported, and 1 is not. My arch nemesis right there. I would love to do future research to see how that could change, if possible. Limitations, just bottom line, there was cross-sectional design. Data collection was one point in time. If I take the same person 3 different years, you could have 3 different answers. So self-reported information responses may be subject to common method bias. Nobody wants to say their business is awful. So clearly they might say it's just awesome when it might not be. Differences in length of service, combat exposure, and transition experience. If someone was in for 2 years or someone was in for 20, you can have a wildly different result. And so future research options, here longitudinal studies, and this really would solve the point in time question. And if you maybe follow veterans throughout their second career, you might have a better research. Using mixed method variables. This would bring in my desire to do qualitative research and examining, moderating, and meeting effects and other variables. Another variable I would love to include, just didn't work out for me this time, is resilience. I think explaining that in the model would be great, just having the right questions at the right time. So, given that, what are your questions?
Good work, Jennifer. So my first question to you is, what was the most challenging part of the
Resilience.
Resilience?
I wanted that to work so much. I worked so hard to put that in there, and it just didn't work. Also, the statistical software. I started with SPSS, didn't work out for me. Then I did Amos for like 80 hours. Did not work out for me. Finally ended up with SmartPLS. And one of the professors here, Andy Dahl, he introduced us to this fellow Gaskin. And he has this entire playlist on YouTube on how to do SmartPLS. And it was so simple, I learned it in like 30 minutes. So one of the biggest challenges is statistical software, having the right construct of resilience. And quite frankly, I wish I had better data sets. I wish I could get more data than what I had. And I don't know if it's out there. I hope it's out there, but I don't know where it's at.
So is that something you're intending to do? Collect
I
more
would
data?
love to do that. It says future research. I would love to. Everything that went not quite as well for me as I wish it would have, I would like to take further. And that is my goal, without a doubt. And quite frankly, I don't know what's next. I have to decide what's next. How do I go about using this great information and giving it to the people that need it? There are some programs that, like Syracuse has this entrepreneurial program for veterans. And I could go over there and present the data. So I would look for stuff like that. Chicago had a symposium this past January, I think, where it was talked literally about this topic. My sister, who did the PhD at the same time I did this, she was there and she goes, "Why aren't you here?" I go, "I didn't know about it. I will next time." So the great news is the networking within the process. In fact, my sister is a CVSO. Basically, she helps veterans get their disability. Okay, so this is something I could give to CVSOs. I could do some sort of presentation at one of their conferences on how veterans can get from point A to point B. Basically, I'm just a fancy cheerleader. And I love that job. It fits well with my servant leadership. So, not sure what's next.
Okay, and you mentioned that you initially wanted to do a qualitative study.
Yes.
Is that something you'll do in your future?
I would love to do that. I don't know what it would look like. But I would love to talk to veterans and how they opened the business. How did you do it? What were the barriers? What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do different? The whole after action review that you would do with any situation. But you know, the vets have to be open to answering those and having those interviews. And I think having good interview questions will be the first step. So yeah, I would love to do qualitative research.
Right. And have you identified any journals that you'd like to publish this
The only thing is it's difficult because this is veteran specific. So I have to go and see what journal would possibly be good for this. Might be Journal of Entrepreneurship, or I'm not sure what would be a good journal to go to, but that's part of my next step. That I'll decide where to go, what to present, where to present, how to present. Because I would have to look at the journal, see what it is they're looking for, and see if I can apply my research to them.
Yeah, that's all I have. Max?
You're on.
Thank you. And I think this is an outstanding topic. But given the veteran include the Army and Navy and a lot of other categories.
I left the Marines out. I'm just kidding. I didn't.
Okay. So maybe the future things is shed additional light, and then maybe the model works specifically for veteran with a certain type of skill. Maybe AI related. I don't know.
I will tell you,
related.
AI is going to change our life, good, bad, or ugly. So embracing it, I think, is better than fighting it. And how do we embrace AI and the entrepreneurial veteran? That would be a good study right there. How can AI affect the overall entrepreneurial performance of a veteran entrepreneur? So there's a lot of opportunity for growth here.
Yeah, I agree. So this is actually the starting point. If you intend to conduct additional study, you can maybe discuss with Adi and other professors to think about what other variable can be incorporated. And maybe actually a control variable can be actually the year of service. You have 20 years, and maybe somebody, have a longer or shorter, maybe, they...
Well, also male, female,
yes.
What rank you were you an officer, were you enlisted?
Wonderful.
There's a lot of different things. And I will tell you, even though this paper was 4 years in the making, because I actually was going to come here a year or two before I actually did, but I had to wait for my son to get his driver's license. So I wouldn't miss school. And my topic has just never changed. So I really am invested into seeing this. And quite frankly, this 4 years got me to step one. There's 1,000 more steps I could take. So this is merely step one, and I understand the magnitude of that, but it was a lot of work to get here.
Yeah, so I would just say there is a lot of future opportunities.
There are so many.
And I'm honored and to be part of the dissertation committee, and I will pass the... Remy?
Yeah,
okay.
Online.
And entrepreneurship, all of that, came through in your presentation. And I also enjoyed reading your dissertation. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, imagine, you've done your work and you have this cousin who is a veteran and contemplating becoming an entrepreneur. In other words, VETREPRENEUR. What would be your advice based for that cousin?
I would sit down with them and say, here are the things. I would actually do a roadmap to success. In fact, one of the books I wrote in was Roadmap to Success. And you would actually build a roadmap. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The first thing is you have to find out more about him. If it was my cousin, I'd probably know a little bit more about him. But if I sat down with him and I said, what was the best things and the worst things that happened to you in service? And we'll find out where his strengths and weaknesses are, kind of like a SWOT analysis. And then you go from there and say, okay, so your strength is this, your weakness is this. For your strength, you can use it in this way. And for your weakness, let's do a little research and get you help to be more successful in the future. So it'll be very methodical. It's not, and it's very dependent on the person involved. And that's where possibly having informatory briefings at conference might help stimulate the veteran into their next step. Kind of like Professor Lumpkin, when he was here, he got my juices going on entrepreneurship. And I thought that was wonderful. I didn't expect it, but I take it when I get it. And I want to do that same thing for my cousin or anyone else, really. Any veteran is like my cousin, quite frankly. We're all family. And I would sit there and just talk them through it. Say, what are your strong points? What are your weak points? Here's where you can go for strength. Here's where you can learn a little bit more to overcome the weakness. Does that answer that?
Yes, almost. Yeah, but I have a little more specific question. So you have several hypotheses. You talk about different variables, constructs that can predict performance as a vetrepreneur. Can you relate any of those findings or the results, statistical results that you work for, that you can draw on in your advice to your cousin?
Self-efficacy.
So what is it about self-efficacy?
If you don't believe that you can be successful, you probably won't be. So you have to determine, do you have the self-efficacy to go through all those constructs of entrepreneurial alertness, orientation, and alertness to get to entrepreneurial performance? Because if you don't have self-efficacy, you won't get to performance. They're tied together. So determining what the self-efficacy level is in somebody, and just because somebody has a lower self-efficacy doesn't mean they won't be successful. It just might be a different level of success. So it really depends on what kind of success you want. Like, there's several veterans David Goggins, he's superhuman, he's super awesome, and he has the best self-efficacy I've ever seen in a veteran. And he's so popular, and he's done all the services, all the special schools. But then, you might have that junior enlisted person who doesn't see in themselves what they could accomplish. And that just takes time and education to get them to the point where they can be successful. You don't want to, the basic goal that at least I would have if I was talking to somebody is, how do you achieve your goals? Not say, well, here's why you can't do it. I'm not that way. I want to tell you how we can do it. It might take a few more steps, but to me, self-efficacy is the first and foremost, most important.
Excellent answer. Thank you for that. I have one more question. So, based on your findings, what would be your one recommendation to the federal government?
Information.
For that matter.
Information. Veterans have to have more information when they leave. Unfortunately, you are often a number in the military. They don't care about you personally. They care about your effort and their collective effort. So having a situation where they do have some information, they have transitional programs, but they're not, they just touch on things. Maybe having a very specific entrepreneurship element in the transitional process. It's called TAP, the Transitional Assistance Program. Maybe if they have one module, if you will, on entrepreneurship, that might get them thinking about what the next year is going to entail. Because like I said, the first year is the toughest year, because you don't know what's next. You don't know how to not be a soldier, a Navy person, an airman, a Marine. You don't know how to not do that. So they got to learn how to be the new them, their new normal. And maybe if they have some sort of learning module when they transition, and that's 100% what I would say to the federal government is, and I've offered to sit on Senate Armed Services Committee for Veterans Affairs on this particular subject, that how can we sustain the future of the military through embracing the courage and experience of the military that is leaving now. Because you don't want somebody to leave the military and said, they just cut me off. You don't want that. So I would definitely suggest some sort of learning program, even if it's not mandatory, make it available. If you make it available to those folks leaving service, I think would be beneficial. I hope to someday, I wrote to Senator Johnson about this quite extensively. And he actually wrote back. And in fact, Governor Doyle, I've had a lot of experience with our political leadership here in Wisconsin, and I actually have talked to them about this. And believe it or not, they all communicated back. Talking and doing are two different things, though. So I would want to be like one of those lobbyists for veterans, and how to get them the things that they need. Again, servant leadership, how to get them the things that they need to be successful in their new life and still love the military. I've been out since '09. So I've been out 17 years. I feel like I've just joined because I stay in it. I stay in the program. I stay with veterans. All my students are veterans. And so I try and work with them and not against them.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
So your the piece that was insignificant, have you considered a different
Yes.
a different interpretation for that data?
What I would say is that I needed a different existing scale of questions. Sometimes, you don't know what you don't know when you're going into this process. And so I found existing scales that I thought were incredible, but maybe I could have done a different existing scale. So maybe I could do the same thing with different existing scales, or maybe a different construct like adding resilience. But that one, I'm not necessarily upset that something didn't go as well as I had hoped, but what I see is the potential to see if that can change with different questions, asking the veterans on a survey.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's give her another hand.